The advent of fentanyl and its analogs represents a seismic shift in the landscape of the global drug trade and public health. Fentanyl, a synthetic opioid initially developed for pain management, boasts potency up to 50 times greater than heroin and 100 times greater than morphine, making its illicit use incredibly dangerous. The fentanyl crisis emerged from the confluence of pharmaceutical innovation, regulatory gaps, and the insatiable demand for opioids, culminating in an unprecedented epidemic of addiction and overdose deaths. This modern crisis is distinguished by its synthetic nature, which complicates traditional drug control strategies. Unlike plant-based drugs such as heroin or cocaine, fentanyl can be synthesized in laboratories, significantly lowering production costs and bypassing the need for extensive cultivation areas. This shift has transformed drug trafficking patterns, with distribution networks leveraging global postal and courier services to smuggle fentanyl and its precursors across borders with relative ease. China's role. China has been at the epicenter of global fentanyl production and distribution, leveraging its sophisticated pharmaceutical and chemical manufacturing sectors. For years, Chinese labs have produced and exported vast quantities of fentanyl and its analogs, along with the precursor chemicals required for their synthesis, to markets in North America and Europe. The role of Chinese entities in the fentanyl trade has drawn parallels with the 19th century opium wars, where economic interests and lax regulatory environments facilitated the mass export of a substance with profound societal impacts. In response to international pressure, China has taken steps to regulate fentanyl and its precursors, placing them under controlled substance regulations. However, the adaptability of synthetic drug producers and traffickers, coupled with the challenge of enforcing regulations across a vast and complex chemical industry, means that fentanyl and its analogs continue to infiltrate global drug markets. Policy responses and consequences. The fentanyl epidemic has prompted a re-evaluation of drug policies and law enforcement strategies worldwide. In the United States, efforts to combat the crisis have included tightening prescription practices, enhancing border security to intercept illicit drug shipments, and increasing the availability of naloxone, an opioid overdose reversal agent. However, these measures have also exposed critical tensions in drug policy, particularly regarding the balance between public health and criminal justice approaches to drug use and addiction. One of the most profound consequences of the fentanyl epidemic is the staggering increase in overdose deaths. Fentanyl's potency means that even minute quantities can be lethal, contributing to a surge in fatalities in countries grappling with its spread. This public health crisis has underscored the need for comprehensive approaches that address the root causes of addiction, including mental health support, economic opportunities, and access to treatment and harm reduction services. The fentanyl epidemic represents a critical juncture in the ongoing struggle to manage the global drug trade and its impacts on society. It challenges policymakers, health professionals, and communities to devise innovative solutions that can mitigate the harm of this potent drug, while also addressing the broader issues of addiction and drug policy reform. The lessons learned from this crisis will likely shape the future of drug policy and public health strategies for decades to come. The American government and drug epidemics. Historical incidents. The involvement of the American government in drug trafficking and epidemics is a complex and controversial aspect of its history, marked by covert operations and unintended consequences. High-profile incidents involving figures like Barry Seal, who smuggled drugs under the radar of law enforcement, and the Iran-Contra affair, where funds from covert arms sales were allegedly used to finance drug trafficking operations by the Contras in Nicaragua, underscore the murky intersections of narcotics and national security interests. These episodes reveal a pattern where the pursuit of geopolitical objectives occasionally intersected with and even facilitated the global drug trade. Crack cocaine and policy. The crack cocaine epidemic of the 1980s and 1990s in the United States serves as a poignant case study of the interplay between drug policy and societal impact. The epidemic was characterized by the widespread distribution and use of crack cocaine, particularly in urban, economically disadvantaged communities. The federal government's response, marked by the enactment of stringent drug laws that mandated severe penalties for crack possession and distribution, disproportionately affected African American communities. The disparity in sentencing between crack and powder cocaine, substances pharmacologically identical but differing in form and demographic usage, highlighted issues of racial and socioeconomic injustice within the American criminal justice system. This period also saw the rise of the War on Drugs, a campaign that significantly expanded the role of federal and local law enforcement agencies in drug interdiction efforts. Critics argue that this approach emphasized criminalization over treatment and prevention, leading to mass incarceration and the perpetuation of cycles of poverty and drug dependency. Questioning governmental motives. The American government's role in drug epidemics invites scrutiny of its motives and the outcomes of its drug policies. The juxtaposition of professed ideals of liberty and democracy against the realities of drug policy enforcement raises questions about the consistency and ethics of the United States' domestic and international drug strategies. The governmental approach to drug control has often appeared at odds with the principles of individual freedom and social justice, sparking debate about the best paths forward in addressing drug-related challenges. Moreover, the involvement of government agencies in activities that may have indirectly or directly facilitated drug trafficking for broader strategic aims complicates the narrative of the United States as a staunch opponent of the drug trade. These incidents contribute to a broader discourse on the effectiveness and morality of drug prohibition policies, the societal costs of the war on drugs, and the potential for policy reform that more effectively balances public health, safety, and civil liberties. In exploring the American government's engagement with drug epidemics, it becomes clear that the issues at hand extend beyond mere policy choices to touch on fundamental questions about governance, accountability, and the role of the state in managing public health and morality. The lessons drawn from this examination are crucial for informing future strategies that aim to mitigate the harms of drug use while upholding the values of justice and human dignity. Comparative analysis. The patterns and playbooks evident in the historical and contemporary drug trade, from the opium wars to the fentanyl crisis and the complexities of Afghanistan's opium economy, offer a rich tapestry for comparative analysis. This section draws direct comparisons between these epochs, emphasizing the continuity of economic incentives, geopolitical strategies, and the profound impact on affected populations. Through this comparative lens, the enduring nature of certain dynamics within the global drug trade becomes apparent, alongside evolving challenges and the responses they provoke. Patterns and playbooks. The economic incentives driving the opium trade in the 19th century and the modern synthetic opioid market share striking similarities. In both instances, the pursuit of profit, regardless of the human cost, has underpinned significant expansions of the drug trade. The opium wars and the fentanyl crisis exemplify how state actors and private enterprises have historically exploited narcotics as commodities, often exacerbating public health crises in the process. Geopolitical strategies also reveal a pattern of using narcotics as instruments of policy or warfare, whether through the British Empire's efforts to undermine China's social fabric with opium, or modern instances where drug trafficking is intertwined with insurgency financing and international diplomacy. The manipulation of drug trade dynamics to serve broader strategic objectives underscores the complex role narcotics play in global politics. The impact on populations, from addiction and social disruption to economic dependency and violence, remains a constant across different eras. The societal consequences of widespread drug use and the ensuing efforts to control it, whether through militarized enforcement or punitive policies, highlight the human cost at the heart of the drug trade. The role of government and individual liberty. A critical examination of government roles in the drug trade raises fundamental questions about the balance between state intervention, individual liberty, and public health. The historical tendency of governments to exploit or combat the drug trade for economic or strategic gain contrasts with the ideals of sovereignty and personal freedom, sparking debate over the ethics and effectiveness of such interventions. The philosophical and ethical considerations of drug policy particularly the tension between preventing harm and respecting individual autonomy, are magnified when considering the long-term effects of policies like the war on drugs. The disparities in enforcement and the impact on marginalized communities further complicate the narrative, challenging policymakers to reconcile the goals of safety and justice.